A huge winter shift is coming, and it's about to unleash two dangerous winter storms and potentially a powerful nor'easter over the next few days, driven by a large Arctic blast. The first winter storm will develop as Arctic air pushes south and interacts with an incoming disturbance spreading snow across parts of the Midwest and into the Northeast. Gusty winds on the backside could lead to areas of blowing snow, especially where snowfall rates briefly intensify. But the second winter storm is the one that has a lot of potential. As an Arctic blast expands south and a stronger low-pressure system develops, this storm has the potential to rapidly intensify as it tracks east. If everything goes right, we could see a classic nor'easter scenario unfold with heavy snowfall, high winds, and significant impacts along the east coast. And on the warmer side of the storm, severe weather is going to make a return to the southeast where damaging winds and a couple of tornadoes are possible. We have a lot to talk about in today's forecast, and I want to begin with this big winter storm potential over the next few days for tens of millions of people. And we are going to begin with what is happening today. We already have an ongoing winter storm, and this one's already dumped a lot of snowfall across Iowa and Nebraska. We have overperforming snowfall here with heavy snow still ongoing this morning in eastern Iowa and across most of Wisconsin, and back into the upper peninsula of Michigan. And across the board, we've actually overperformed in snowfall. I mean, we've had a lot of areas around 8 to 12 inches in Iowa, when we were only expecting maybe 4 to 8 in a lot of locations. So, generally speaking, this has been a pretty significant winter storm. This is the same winter storm, by the way, that brought a severe weather outbreak yesterday to the Ohio Valley where we ended up seeing a few strong tornadoes, and it was a crazy event. By the way, there were times where we were approaching double-digit tornado warning counts, and on top of that, we also almost had a large tornado directly go into Bloomington, Indiana. So yesterday was pretty crazy. Now today is almost all going to be exclusively snow and also a little bit of rain along the east coast. We don't have any severe weather in the forecast for today with this storm system, which is good news. The bad news is that we have a dangerous winter storm still ongoing, and that will continue into this evening, especially across parts of northern Michigan and also back into central and northern parts of New England, where heavy snow will lead to several inches of snow this evening. Now, this isn't it, by the way. I know we have one winter storm ongoing, and we were talking about the possibility of a nor'easter and a big East Coast winter storm. That is definitely still on the table. So what we're going to be seeing late Friday into early Saturday will be a continuation of moderate to heavy snowfall across most of the Northeast. Once we go into Saturday morning, this storm system starts to weaken, and this little blob of moisture that we have coming over the Rockies right now is going to make its way towards the East Coast. It'll make its way really across the Tennessee Valley on Saturday. Really not talking about much snowfall across the board, but if you're in St. Louis, if you're in Kansas City, don't be surprised if you see some snowflakes during the daytime on Saturday. There will also be a risk of severe weather down here along the Gulf Coast, and in the southeast we do have a marginal threat for maybe an isolated tornado or two and also a damaging wind risk in areas like Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But what's going to happen is that the remnants of that winter storm that's happening right now will stick around across the Great Lakes in the Northeast. We'll have moisture coming out of the Gulf, that moisture coming over the Rockies, and eventually, once we go into Sunday, we are expecting a large storm system to develop. So, this is expected to begin Sunday morning as a coastal storm will begin to form off the coast of North Carolina. What we think is going to happen is that this is going to become a bomb cyclone. What that means is that the pressure will drop about 24 millibars within about 24 hours or so. It's going to be a very borderline bomb cyclone, though. It's not going to rapidly intensify as much as we've seen so far this winter with the other two bomb cyclones that we had. But once we go into the late morning on Sunday, is when we are anticipating a large band of snowfall to develop across the Great Lakes and also the Mid-Atlantic, with a very definitive area of heavy snowfall attempting to form across parts of Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and back into New Jersey and Delaware. And this is where we could be talking about one of the biggest winter storms that we have seen so far this winter in these areas, and perhaps the biggest one that we've seen in quite some time that is on the table for this weekend. While this is happening, our low-pressure system will continue to gradually intensify offshore before eventually beginning to rapidly intensify Sunday night just to the east of Virginia and as well as Maryland. Notice that we'll have a large area of moderate to heavy snowfall ongoing in parts of New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, back into Maryland. Heaviest snowfall will likely be around Maryland, and then southern New England will be dealing with some light snowfall. And then, once we go into the overnight hours Sunday into early Monday, we are going to continue to have a large band of coastal heavy snowfall that will stretch from Boston, Massachusetts, towards Washington, D.C. Once we go into early Monday morning, the heaviest of that snowfall will continue across Cape Cod, New Jersey, back into Delaware and Maryland. And then Monday afternoon is when this storm system will finally move away from the coastline. Only snow left over will be in the mountains. Some lake-effect snow may continue near Lake Erie, and then back over eastern New England, we will continue to have snowfall. But this winter storm that's going to be impacting the East Coast could easily dump over a foot of snow in a widespread area. So, in just a moment, I'm going to talk exactly about how much snowfall could fall out of this winter storm, the different scenarios, and also talking more about what's upcoming next week for other areas and who else is going to be seeing snow, as more snow is going to be on the way and the Arctic blast that is coming. And before we talk more about those scenarios when it comes to the amount of snow that we're going to see, there is a possibility here that this nor'easter is not nearly as intense as what the GFS model is showing, where it has over a day of heavy snowfall in some areas. The European model, for example, has this coastal storm developing as we go into early Sunday, but obviously not showing nearly as much widespread heavy snowfall. It almost has like a detached area of snowfall on the very far northern side of that low-pressure system. And unless this low-pressure system goes far enough to the north and west, it will likely only produce light snowfall. So, that's something to keep in mind. Snowfall would not be nearly as heavy. We will likely still see a period of at least some sort of heavy snowfall late Sunday night into Monday morning across areas in southern New England, right along the coastline, and perhaps back over in Maryland. But again, look at the European model here, keeping a lot of the significant snowfall mostly offshore, and also not having that low pressure center as far to the west. However, I do want to point out that a lot of models have been shifting west and north over the last 24 hours. This is not just one model that I'm showing you that is showing this sort of scenario. There's a lot of other models that are now coming more into agreement with what the GFS model is showing. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, by the way. When we upload our video tomorrow morning, it'll have way more details and be way more specific about snowfall accumulation. But with the trends that we are seeing, a major winter storm is appearing at least more likely to happen than unlikely. So, we're at least getting a little bit more confidence that we are going to see something significant. Again, it could flip the other way tomorrow. It could flip the other way even later today, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, this is where things really get crazy, is how much snowfall are we going to see out of this winter storm? Well, I'm going to show you 3 different scenarios. This is kind of the middle ground, what I think is more likely than not going to happen. I think we're going to be talking about a widespread 4 to 8 inches of snow for most of the Northeast. I don't really think many areas are going to be excluded from that. I think Washington, D.C. will likely get near half a foot. Even areas back over like Connecticut, I think we're going to see several inches of snow. I do want to point out that a lot of the snow that you're seeing up here is from the winter storm that is happening over the next 24 hours. So that's not necessarily coming from this potential nor'easter, but back over along the coastline back into New Jersey and just outside of Washington, D.C. I do think it's realistic to say that yes, 4 to 8 inches of snow is looking more likely for this area. Again, it's not for certain as of right now, but it is more likely than not what we're going to end up seeing in terms of our range of snowfall accumulation. Now, this is where things get very crazy, is when we're looking at the GFS model. This is the one that I was just showing you guys with the deterministic model here. It's basically showing a major and almost historic winter storm, at least when it comes to the last 5 to 10 years. We haven't had anything like this where we're talking about a widespread 1 to 2 feet of snow in areas like Washington, D.C., Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey, southeast Pennsylvania, and back into parts of New England. Again, this would obviously be big, and we could even have some locations according to this model around 24 to 30 inches of snow. So, this is obviously possible. I would say it's not that likely that we are going to see this much snowfall. If we end up seeing this much snow, honestly, I'd be really surprised because I do not think the setup is going to support this significant of snowfall here across the Northeast. But if we go to the lowest end scenario, that is the European model, which shows a widespread area of snow, but mostly light precipitation, and only indicating a widespread maybe 3 to 6 inches, some isolated locations a little over that, especially back over near the DC area, and maybe back over in Cape Cod. So again, across the board here, there's a lot of uncertainty for sure. There are very large differences between all the models when it comes to snowfall accumulation. In tomorrow's video, we'll have a much better idea of what's going to happen. And one thing that's almost for certain is that the winds will be very high late Sunday into early Monday. Back over in the Northeast, we could easily have wind gusts pushing 50 to 60 miles per hour in areas like Long Island, New Jersey, back into Delaware, even up into Cape Cod and southeastern Massachusetts. By Monday, we could be talking about near hurricane force wind gusts, which is, something that does happen quite a bit with nor'easters. But if we did have a classic nor'easter like the GFS model is showing, we could also have some really high winds, which would almost undoubtedly lead to blizzard conditions if enough snowfall occurs. Beyond this winter storm, we are expecting the weather pattern to remain fairly active, especially if you're in the Midwest and the Northeast, as more snowfall is likely going to come from an Alberta clipper by the middle of next week. Looks like the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest, really is going to be getting hammered again with more atmospheric river events, some more rain, more mountain snow. We could have a large storm system by the middle and end of next week, perhaps back over in the Ohio Valley and the East Coast, but that remains a little uncertain as of right now. And then, once we head into early March, this is where we really don't know what's going to happen. But I do think we are going to be on a big temperature roller coaster. And speaking of temperature roller coaster, let's talk about that roller coaster, because this weekend we're going to go from really warm temperatures to really cold weather all along the eastern seaboard. We'll have very, very cold air down in the deep southeast, including Florida, as that bomb cyclone forms offshore. By the middle of next week, yes, things are going to improve, but I don't think it's going to last forever. I think we're going to continue to have several strong cold fronts through the end of February and into early March. We will likely continue to see a lot more Arctic air, but mostly confined to the northern plains, upper Midwest, and the Northeast. Yes, there is definitely a possibility we could have one more big shot of Arctic air down into areas like Texas and maybe the Southeast, but I'm not entirely confident that's going to happen yet. Obviously, we still have a few weeks left until winter is officially over. Also, tomorrow there is a very low-end threat of severe weather across parts of Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina. Biggest concern will be isolated wind, maybe a brief tornado sometime during the afternoon into the early evening hours. So, I'll have more details on this tomorrow, especially if it uptrends, but for right now, looks to be a pretty minor threat across the board. The bomb cyclone development that we're tracking represents a particularly significant meteorological event, as these rapidly intensifying storm systems can produce impacts that far exceed what might be expected from their initial appearance. The 24 millibar pressure drop criterion for bomb cyclone classification reflects the explosive nature of the development process, where atmospheric energy is released in a concentrated manner over a relatively short time period. What makes this potential nor'easter especially noteworthy is the combination of factors coming together at the right time and place to support rapid intensification. The interaction between the Arctic air mass, the positioning of the jet stream, and the availability of oceanic moisture creates conditions that can fuel dramatic storm development when all elements align properly. The uncertainty between forecast models highlights the sensitive nature of coastal storm development, where small changes in storm track, timing, or intensity can result in dramatically different outcomes for affected areas. This sensitivity requires continued monitoring and model evaluation as the event approaches and more atmospheric data becomes available to refine the forecast.